Okay, Endeavour, we join the story. The explorer seemed surprisingly disposed to talk. He made a sweeping gesture with his hand and hit the vulture in the chest and sloshed some of the coconut's liquid over the bird. "Tell me," he said, "what do you think of this?" "The vulture?" said Con doubtfully. Her voice took on the tone that voices take when they're asked to comment on a newborn baby, when that baby is very evidently horrifyingly ugly. "It's nice. It smells very original." "Of the city, of the jungle. They call it the green hell. Did you know that?" Fred stared at the vast expanse of stone, at the green ceiling high overhead. "They call the jungle the green hell because it's so lacking in grand pianos. Men, when I say men, I mean idiots, used to come here with pianos on the back of elephants, and they used to be angry when their teacups broke in the storm." He grunted. "But if you're willing to have a roguish, wildish kind of life, I find it closer to heaven than to hell." The explorer began to drink from another coconut shell. He sighed and his eyes became misty. There's a lot written about love at first sight. And what is love at first sight but recognition? It's instant knowledge that this person will make your heart larger. A lover, a child. The same applies to places. It's why I wanted to seek them out. It's why they need protecting. He stared, his eyelids a little uneven, at Fred. Fred stared at the fire, avoiding his gaze. There was a quality in this place that worked like a flint on his insides. It was like a light. And the vastness of it, the sun and the green, he could see why other people might feel it was too green, too loud, too endless, too much. But not him. It felt like a trumpet call to a part of him that he had not known existed. Fred's face must have shown something of what he was thinking. The explorer hammered his coconut on the ground. "I can tell," he said. "I can see that you are falling in love with this place. How do you not yet see why it must be a secret? How do you not see how mad it is, how mad it would be to gamble with such beauty?" Fred hesitated. He couldn't keep it secret. It was impossible. The world deserved to know about this beauty. The headmaster would call an assembly and call him a hero, but he'd never seen anyone as utterly sure of anything as the man in front of him. "You don't understand," said the explorer under his breath. "Speech is dangerous. Some of the most interesting things I have said, I realised later I did not have the right to." Then, abruptly, he changed tack. He became brisk. "You said you followed my map. Do you mean you encountered the bees?" "Yes," said Lila, "we borrowed some of their honey," and she explained how Max had seen the monkeys and the ants. The explorer nodded. "I used to do the same. Bees make good allies. I used to get the tobacco pouches made specially by a man in the Burlington Arcade. I spent a lot of time in those parts of the jungle. But it doesn't do to be without tobacco for too long. And you can't carry too much on your person without attracting more attention from jaguars than is practical. I have tobacco pouches stationed across the whole sweep of the river. By the way, did you meet my dolphins?" "Yes," said Fred. "We didn't know they were yours." "Oh," the explorer hiccuped. "They're good creatures, dolphins," he said, his voice tripping over itself. "I used to feed them sardines. I worry it was a mistake, though. They trust too easily. It's a mistake to trust too easily." "And then there was the fire," said Lila. "A bad one. So we came here. We thought it was the least mad risk." "That's exactly it." The explorer was becoming emphatic. He emphasised some of the cacacho over Fred's knees. Fred tried not to laugh. "Take risks," said the explorer. "That's the thing to do. Get to know what fear feels like. Get to know how to manoeuvre around it. But—" He paused to drink again. "But?" asked Lila. "But be sure the risks you take aren't taken to impress someone else." Fred frowned. It sounded like the kind of thing his masters would say at school. That's the way people end up with jaguars chewing at their collarbones and nobody to love them for it. He wiped his eyes and stared at them. "Risks? Jaguars," said Con. "Noted. I took a risk once. I loved someone. 2 people. A woman. And we had a child. Did you know?" "We didn't know," said Lila gently, and she exchanged a glance at Fred. "I lost that gamble. I lost them." And he set down a coconut and closed his eyes in a long, exhausted blink. "But I'm glad to have made the wager." "Did you—" began Lila. "I loved like I was unhinged," he said. His voice was rough. "I came at love like a child, making up arms. I worked out how to blink her name in Morse code." He gave a drunken grunt of laughter. I was very young, he said. People do not tell you that love is so terrifying. It's less like rainbows and butterflies and more like jumping on the back of a moving dragon. Fred hesitated, wordless, but wanting to say something that would be large enough to meet the taut pain on the man's face. Before he could say anything, the explorer drank again, finishing the coconut in 2 immense gulps. Do you all do nothing but stare? I thought children gambolled and frolicked and did some more gollicking and frambling. Fred looked at the others. He had no idea how to gambol. He believed it involved running in circles with your arms in the air and lifting your knees as high as they would go, which was not, he thought, something sensible in the circumstances. I don't think we're really the frolicking sort, said Fred. Disappointing, said the explorer. Are you drunk? Asked Con. Of course not. He belched reproachfully. I'm just perhaps the world itself is drunk. The jungle is a little more blurred than usual. I think that stuff must be strong, said Fred. That is impolite, and I resent the implication. Sorry. Good, the explorer slurred. I like people best when they're silent or sorry. Do you need, began Lila, but he closed his eyes and turned away from them. My head aches. I can't look at you in the voice. I shall sleep now. And he laid down on the stone ground and closed his eyes. A noise like a motor car began to come from somewhere deep within his chest. Moving on the tips of their toes, the children returned to their own fire. As dark spread over the city, a swarm of mosquitoes appeared. One of them got caught inside Fred's nose and bit his nostril. Is there a way to get rid of mosquitoes? Said Con. I think smoking keeps them away, said Lila. Some of the men my parents work with do it. I heard that smoking makes you less hungry too, said Con. We could try, said Fred, scratching his nose. He rolled up leaves and Lila filled them with shredded grass and lichen, and Con lit them. Is this like real smoking? Gasped Lila. Horrid, acrid smoke billowed into Fred's eyes. I've never tried. Does smoking taste a bit like a garden dyed in your face? He said. I think so, said Con, from the smell. Then I suppose yes, said Fred. He discreetly put his cigarette out inside a big empty snail shell. It didn't seem worth the feeling that his tongue was about to drop out of his mouth. Fred looked at the girls, who were both splitting disgustedly into the fire. He never really known a girls his age, but both Lila and Con could spit as far as any boy at school. Their spit had commitment and impact. He saw them grin at each other in the fire. It was a peculiar night, that night. Fred's thoughts kept turning to the man lying by the fire, at the other side of the ruined city square, and to his lost son and wife. The explorer was so alone, living with only the green and the birds and the endless jungle. But, Fred thought, it wasn't as if it was much less alone himself. The thought made him shiver. He felt something touch his ankle. He jerked away, thinking of tarantulas, but it was a hand. Con's hand gripping his ankle in her sleep. He hesitated, and then he reached down and pressed his thumb on hers. He hoped the touch said, We'll be all right, we'll be all right. But it was hard to be specific with thumbs. But it must have worked a little, because she grew still and her breathing became heavy and regular. Lila muttered in her sleep, and Becca lay entangled in her long dark hair. Fred looked up at the vine roof above, scanning it for snakes, and then his flint tight in his palm, and he allowed himself to close his eyes. Enjoy, guys. See you tomorrow.